Robert.
Hey, Bonnie, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Doing good, man.
You.
I tell you, man, Off the Grid, I watched it and it was off the chain. It was a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. I like the fact that the hero was not only your typical action hero, but he's got the smarts as well. I think that was what really drove me to watch, to really get into it, that he has the smarts and the muscle.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. That was my goal.
So my first question is, what attracted you to take on this film as director?
Well, all my other movies have been thrillers, and so doing an action movie because of the world that we live in, that the independent world, you get no days to shoot, and I just wanted to make sure that since I come from that world that I could do it right. So I talked to my writer friend of mine, Jim Agnew, and I said, hey, I got an idea for a script. I go, what if we make the action hero opposite of John Wick? What if we make him to where he doesn't have a gun, he doesn't know how to fight, but he does everything with his brain, even when he's learning how to fight, when he has to fight, everything about him has to come from his brain. And I said, and to me, it has to be unique though. And I go, when we build these contraptions, I'm going to figure out a way to do something that has to work though. They can't just look like they'll work, but actually work. And so I would go to Home Depot and go up and down the aisles and start building stuff. And I'd call Josh up and show him the testing when I got home and said, hey, look, this really shoots an arrow, and this and this. And so he would start sending me stuff from his property and start building stuff. And when we started designing his cabin, he's like, hey, look at this. And so we all started designing everything together. And that's what's so great with working with Josh, is that, he saw that we were trying to make an action movie, but still make a character piece.
That's amazing. And I really like the fact that Josh had the input in with his character as well, because, I really like the fact that his character is this brilliant scientist, and he's just there to do a job, but then it's like, the bad guys, the employers want to use it as a weapon, and he's like, no, this is not what I did this for. He's doing it for the greater good, and yet they want to use it for nefarious purposes. And then, of course, as the film goes, we know he goes off the grid and, still showing this nice guy persona, helping this kid out and whatnot. And then, of course, once we know what happens, he just has to go into use any resources he can in the environment. I think that's another smart thing that was done with that.
Yeah, it was important for me to have my three characters, especially my four characters, to all be someone that they're not. And that was so important, and to be have and show pain of what their lives are like now, but what they want is something else. And that's what Michael is. That's what, Josie is in the movie, and that's where Greg is even. Greg isn't a villain. But he knows he has to be, and so that's what was important. I didn't want the tough guy to play a tough guy. I wanted someone that everyone loved to have to be a tough guy, but doesn't really want to and hates being it. I think that was the balance. And Josh, we need to start the movie off with loneliness and to show what it takes to give up your whole life to save others. And that's why, the movie starts off the way it did. It was really important. And Josh felt the same way. And having the movie push for 2 years, it developed me and Josh to have a relationship that I've never had before, where we were still calling each other every week and changing the script. I think me and Josh alone did 70 rewrites.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did find it interesting about Greg's character because, it's clear that, he's working for the company, and then when Peter Stormare is like giving barking the orders at him, you could see that reluctance in his emotion. Like he's like, do I really want to, like, he questions his own moral compass. And I think that's what's amazing. I love these type of characters who they're supposed to be the antagonist, but yet they question their own, like, their judgment about whether they are doing the right thing or not. And
Yes.
I always love these type of characters. I feel like it drives the plot more of the film itself, the overall quality. You don't want to just have a straight out bad guy, good guy all the time. You want someone with, more dimension, like a three-dimensional character rather than a one-dimensional character.
It's true, and to make a good movie with action, I think that you really need to look at action in a way where 80% of it is emotions and 20% of it is physical. If you could let the actor drive the action into the movie by his reactions, that's what makes action even stronger. Is that you just can't have cars flying around, people getting shot, and all that. You need to see the fear in his eyes, so what he's battling before you even show what he's battling. And that's what we did in the bike scene. That's what we did in the fight scene. I needed to make him look a little clumsier in the fight, where I didn't want the audience to think that he also learned how to fight. It needed to be elbows to where and throwing around where he doesn't even know how to throw the right punch, maybe. you know?
Yeah, just basically he's relying on his own instincts. That's what it basically is, and that's what makes it work. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't have to be a Jason Statham or a Scott Adkins, or he's just, they know how to do it. Just a guy who's going to say, this guy has me in chokehold. What's the best thing to use? Do what I can. Stuff, anything like that. Even it may look clumsy, but still, it's humanistic because it happens in real fight. This can happen in a real life situation.
Yeah, it did. And for us to fall in love with Josh's character, it was important because I do have to have him kill people. So I have to let the audience know that he comes to a breaking point where he has no other choice and he can't do it with his hands. He doesn't want to. He has to do it with the way that he's just pushing them back, but they're trying to kill him as well. That's why it was important for me to have them not also have a salt rock gun in their hand, but to also have a gun. To the balance of knowing that they could actually do that. And that's why Ricky, I always had him just have a gun, the guy that plays the Marcus role, because he needs to know that he's there to do what he has to do, even if he has to kill. He's
Yeah.
my killer.
So speaking of the action, I know that you are well known as a stunt man and a stunt coordinator and all that. How much involved were you in the action sequences itself on this one?
They were all me. Me and my buddy Eric Norris. He knows what my brain works like. He calls me a bully on the set because I demand. I want the audience to have an ouch moment. I need them to be able to see the action clearly. I don't want these wild punches. I want to know if a guy gets hit in the jaw, that you see a pain of him getting hit in the jaw and knows what it feels like. And that's what was so important. And when they hit the ground, he'd bring a pad, and I'm like, there's no pads on my set. I need concrete, body to concrete. I need ouch moments, and he really helped me. And training Josh how to ride a motorcycle, with being from the action world, I got a lot of access to some of the best. And Jimmy Roberts, who's trained Tom Cruise and other huge actors, taught Josh how to ride a bike. And I said, Josh, I don't want to use a double on this bike scene. I said, there's a few scenes I know I have to, but we need these cars sliding around you. I need you to tap these cars. I need you to really, really learn how to ride a bike. And he did. And he was badass on a bike, and he was scared at times, but I had the best of the best out there, and they made sure to keep him safe. But Josh was a superhero on this
So
movie.
you'd say he did about what, like 98, 99% of his own action in this,
I
basically?
would say at least 97% of his action was all Josh. I mean, and whatever wasn't, he wanted to do it. And I'm like, no, I need you tomorrow. So, and believe me, and my stunt double, he said, yeah, you wouldn't have been able to come tomorrow.
That's awesome. How long did shooting take on this movie, and what challenges did you face during production at all, if any?
Well, I just want to bring up the challenge in these kind of movies independently is that, people will look at my movie like the Mission Impossible movies and Matrix, all these other movies, when we're not. We have the restrictions. They give us 19 days to shoot a movie, and action movies take, and no second unit, just all 19 days. So we were, at the end of the day, they'd call wrap, and the producers say, Johnny, you got to stop. And I'm like, no, I got my DP, I got Josh and the focus puller, and they're willing to go with me. And so we would leave at night. We'd probably average 2 hours sleep a night, and then get out there and still shoot more coverage as much as we can to make up for the lack of days we had. And we would love to have gone big on everything, but what I realized is that if you could go more character driven and dig into caring and loving these characters, I could get away with them giving them a big castle of a huge scene and all this other stuff that they want out of a big movie, and that's what I was trying to balance the whole movie. And it's hard because when you do a movie like this, you shoot the movie, you edit it, and you realize it's not right
Yeah.
because the actors performed with so much heart and care that doesn't work in sequence to the scene. So you have to move scenes back and forth and around to get them to work to a whole new movie. And that's what we did in this movie.
That's awesome. Well, I gotta say, this was a great movie. And so what's next for you that you can talk about, or any new projects in the works?
Yeah, we wrote an off the grid too. Hopefully the audience will respond to this movie where it's going to be really crazy. I've already started to work on the gadgets and all that. Also doing a movie with Patriot Pictures called The Veterans Day. That's a big action movie that we should be able to pull off maybe this year. And I think I'm going to stay true to action because I found this niche where I could pull it off in the days that they're telling me, and I'll figure out a storyline around it.
Awesome. Well, Off the Grid is coming out June 27th. This is an amazing action film. I'm loving indie action film more and more now because of films like this. Josh did
Yes.
an amazing job, and Johnny, man, you are the man. Thank you for
Thank you.
making this, and thank you for taking the time to talk about it.
Brother, thank you so much for liking this movie. We worked so hard. Josh, Greg, and Ricky, and everyone worked so hard on this movie for us.
Well, awesome. Well, I hope everyone does get to see it, and I would like to see an off the grid too, should it happen. So, again, thank you for taking the time to talk about it. And as always, stay awesome.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.